Photography is a powerful language that with one single image can transmit volumes of story and emotion. Plymouth resident Ed Nute has been mastering this language for over 30 years, focusing his lens on subjects ranging from natural landscapes, portraiture, to commercial food photography, but always to tell a story. The local scene visited Ed's studio to learn more about his story, his work, and what life has been like behind the camera.
A friend of mine was avoiding the draft in the 60s, how old I am, and he was getting rid of things, and he gave me his camera. And I found that I could do with the camera what I couldn't do. I'm left-handed, and I was drawing, but I was smudging it. So I found, coincidentally, what I could do with that, what I saw with the camera, and do that. And I shot some film, and the first roll of film, I probably had 2 or 3 pictures that people liked. And I went, So another roll of film. And when you get that positive response, I was probably 16 or 17 years old. I said, okay, there's something, and I kept dabbling at it and pursued it. I fell into it, I was comfortable with it, I had confidence in it, and I've been able to parlay that for 50 odd years, being just very, very lucky to do what I do here in Plymouth for over 40 years. And if you do something long enough, you should get better at it. And I'm still learning. Every day I'm still learning with digital or whatever I'm doing. So the process continues. I try to shoot every day. There's probably not one day that goes by that I don't do something photography related. And it's never been work to me. It's been difficult work at times, but it's just been great. I've been very, very lucky. I grew up in Bryantville, which is part of Pembroke, and lived there, and wanted to get out of there when I was younger. And so I was looking at different ways of doing that, and wanted to be a musician for a while. I was a drummer when I was a kid, and I kid that Ringo had the job that I wanted, so that took care of that. I've always connected music and photography in the sense of the creative process. When you're doing a commercial photo shoot, you meet with the client and you start with an idea, and then you start to photograph that, and maybe that idea goes from here to here. And with music, it's the same way. You have a chord change, and you're sitting with a group of friends and you're playing. That chord change will go from one degree to another, and will be totally different from where you started it. So I've always found photography and music being my 2 passions, I guess you could say. But also, a lot of it's the same. You look at a photo and you want people to remember it. You play a song, you want people to remember it. And I've often thought, how many times have you heard a song and you hear it all day long? If you can take a picture like that sticks in people's heads, then they're the same in a way. And you want to move people with what you do, whether it's cooking or writing or photography or music. You want a response. What's the point if you don't get a response? It's kind of like, I like it when people don't like my photos, because I get more of a kick out of that, because I learn from that. And so there's a parallel between any creative process. Around 1979, Ocean Spray, their corporate headquarters was right down the street here on Water Street. And to date myself, I had a darkroom in my house, a black and white darkroom. And this young man, good friend, Jack Caney, called me and said, can you develop a roll of film? And I could. It was 35 millimeter. Went over to them, met them, and Ocean Spray at that point was starting to really expand. And most of the people there were my age. And I went over and we hit it off. Well, that started a relationship of photographing their new employees, and all coincidence. Everything in my life has been coincidence. So one day they said, can you photograph a cranberry muffin? And I went, okay. And I got it. I had a little studio in my garage in Kingston. I put the cranberry muffin down. It didn't move, which I like, because I don't like things that move. And I took a pretty good shot of it, and then they gave me another job and another job. And my dad coincidentally happened to be a cook. Who doesn't love food? I love food. And it kind of but it kind of evolved from that. And then someone left Ocean Spray and went to Whole Foods, well, Bread and Circus at the time, and I started working for them. And another person left Ocean Spray and went to Welch's Grape Juice. And back then, there was a really nice communal, I know a guy kind of thing. And it was not intentional, but I felt very comfortable doing it because people always say, oh, food photography is incredibly difficult. I don't find it difficult. I find photographing Larry Bird would be impossible for me to do. And I connected with it and it grew from there. And I'm still doing food today. Did a couple shoots about a month ago with a new barbecue place in North Plymouth called Bark. And I've got a little bit of a reputation as a food photographer, but I'm a commercial portrait photographer, really, with a leaning towards food. I love the food photography that I do. When that works, it's great. So it depends on what I'm doing. I've never really thought of myself as one type of photographer. I'm not a landscape photographer, but I've done it. I'm not a portrait photographer, but I do portraits. So it depends on what you see, what comes your way. If you keep shooting, you're always looking, and I'm always looking, even when I'm driving the car. I'll see something out of the corner of my eye and maybe go back the next day. I was doing some work in Pine Hills and I happened to see a group of trees. And I said, I gotta go back there. So a couple of days later, all this humidity came into the air. And I went down there and I got about 10 shots that were just beyond my wildest expectation. But because I happened to see that when I was there a day before. So you kind of file that away. Okay, that's a cool spot. And I think any photographer is always looking. You're not gonna reinvent the wheel. But maybe you can show somebody something they've seen from a little different point of view. The night shots I've been doing recently, I've been getting a lot of compliments of people going, geez, I like that angle of what you're doing. I didn't look at that road that way or those set of lights that way. I photographed the train station in the Cordage and did some shots and people loved them and it's all abandoned. But the light is beautiful. You've got these, so if you can do that, so you're always on the look. And I don't think that ever changes no matter how long you've been shooting. Any business has evolved, like a writer doesn't write on a typewriter anymore. Musicians don't record on tape anymore. And photography has evolved to the same degree. Probably 30 years ago, I would go to trade shows in Boston and they had all printers and there'd be one guy in the corner who was selling digital photography. This is like 30 years ago. He had a camera that was like this big. And the poor guy was over there, nobody was talking to him. And you were shooting an image that was like that big. It was like 1 megapixel maybe. And I just said, this is never gonna happen in my lifetime. I'll be retired by that. Well then, 10 or 15 years later, all that technology came together. The quality went up and the price came down. And my clients at the time dictated that I needed to do that. And I did it. I was lucky. I was in a building in Plymouth here with some younger people that knew more about it than I, and they helped me a lot. And I embraced it. There's a great quote by Neil Young, which is very topical right now. He was touring with Pearl Jam years ago. And someone said, why are you touring with Pearl Jam? And he says, well, you either get on the bus or the bus goes by you. And that's what I did. I'm on the digital bus. And it's a great tool. I miss part of what I did before, but you can't look behind, you have to look ahead. And use that tool, that's what it is, to the best way you can, and hopefully people like what you do.
Thank you, Ed, for sharing your story. For more information about Ed's work, visit nutephotography.com or find him on Facebook and Instagram.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button before you go. We'll see you next time.